I did one of those cheap $3.99 deals to Iceland. Was it a scam? If you're new to the channel, my name is Bridget. I'm a travel blogger, and I travel the world with my 9-year-old daughter and share with you the good, the bad, and the bloopers so you can get more comfortable traveling with your kids. Okay, so here is the long-awaited video from our Iceland trip 3 months later. My daughter was born right when Frozen got big, so she has been wanting to see the Northern Lights since birth. So when I saw this deal for a trip to Iceland for under $400, I had to look into it. The name of the company that I booked with was Great Value Vacations. So let's talk about what a $3.99 travel deal gets you. This was a pretty nice package, not nice in a luxury sense, but nice in what you got for $3.99. So that would have been 3 nights at a city center hotel in Reykjavik, round trip flights, and all of the activities we did the whole time. We ended up adding on an extra night. You could add on a few extra nights if you wanted to, but we did 4 nights. 1, because I wanted to give us as much chance of seeing the Northern Lights as possible. 2, because where I am at, I'm just finishing 2 years of chemo, and this was going to be like my first international trip since then. And I knew that jet lag just hits me harder these days, and it takes me longer to recover than it did in my 20s. I think we also paid extra to add on transfers from the airport to the hotel and back to the airport. Okay, so what type of hotel did that get us? I would say it was probably a 3-star-ish hotel by European standards. The name of the hotel was Hotel Muli, and it was almost like a cross between a hotel and a hostel, and not in a bad way. It honestly had everything that we needed. It was contactless, so basically you check in, you have a code, you get your key out of the box, and you check into your room. There is a staff member on site. If you need something, you could have called on the phone, or you'd see them coming through to clean. The whole downstairs of the hotel was like a common area that had coffee machines you could use for free, lots of tables, games to play, as somewhere to wash dishes if you needed to, and they had a drawer of like a food pantry drawer. If you were leaving and you had extra food, you could put it in the food pantry drawer. If you want to see more about the hotel, you can head to my YouTube channel. I do a 2-minute room tour of every hotel we stay in. The rooms were pretty small, just like 2 twin beds fit in the room, a wardrobe, a bathroom, but honestly, it was all we needed. We were basically just sleeping in the room and spending our time outside of the hotel. I will say it was not walkable. We had to get to basically the central bus station for all of our tours, and hotel reviews on TripAdvisor were kind of a mix, but a lot of people said it was walkable to the bus station. But while we were there, they were having some really rough weather, and it would have been probably a 45-minute walk or longer with the snow and wind and everything we were having. We visited in March, which is sort of the off season. The really like beautiful pictures of Iceland that you'll see are probably in the summer, and I think it would be a completely different trip in the summer. But March is the tail end of the season to see Northern Lights, because after that it's just too light at night to see them. So that's why we picked those dates, and probably also why it was a bit cheaper. Okay, our round trip flights were out of New York, so we had to get from North Carolina to New York on our own, which it's cheaper for us to do if we just use some points or miles or something to get up to New York City. We could have flown out of North Carolina, but it would have been a lot more expensive. We flew Iceland Air from New York to Iceland, which was nice. Pretty standard as far as economy airfare goes. Now, as far as activities go, included in our package was a Northern Lights tour, which we started the first night we were there. We basically got there very early in the morning. We had flown overnight and slept during the day that day in the hotel room, and got up and went on a Northern Lights tour for 10 o'clock at night. We pretty much used taxis to get to the bus station, which added some expense, but was worth it with how the weather was. So we went out the first night, drove out away from the city to get away from the light pollution in the city, and looked for the Northern Lights, but it was pretty cloudy and we didn't see anything. So we got to learn about them and then drive back to our hotel, be dropped off, get back in bed for like 1 a.m., 2 a.m., and then start the next day. With, I think, most of the companies, if you go out to see the Northern Lights and don't see them, and they kind of just make the call that it's not possible to see them that night, you can keep going back until you see them. So we had a few more chances to go. The next day we got up, and included in our package was the Blue Lagoon. Actually, included in our package was a different lagoon, Sky Lagoon, I believe, but they had a minimum age of 12 years old. So the company, Great Value Vacations, actually changed us over to Blue Lagoon, which did not have that age restriction. It was really nice to go there. I think it's worth the hype. You've probably seen it all over TikTok or the internet. If you look up anything Iceland, you're going to see the Blue Lagoon. But I really liked it. It lived up to the hype. It was really relaxing. We were still tired and jet lagged, and it was just a nice thing to do the next day. We went out again that night to search for the Northern Lights and did not see them again. Our next day, we tried to go to our whale watching tour that was included in the package. We got down to the marina area and found out it had been canceled. They didn't have our contact information on file through the tour company, so they didn't know that, or they didn't know how to get to reach us to tell us it had been canceled. So we were kind of in the area and we decided to go to the Whale Museum, which was amazing. It was one of my favorite museums we've been to. They had probably 50 life-size replicas of different types of whales, and I think that was worth it. The wind, I think, was the problem with the tour. The swells were like 1 to 2 meters, so it was not going to be an enjoyable trip for anyone to go out on the water that day. I've got a video in the playlist about the Whale Museum if you want to see more about that. And then we made our way back to the hotel, took a nap, went out again that night for the Northern Lights, and did not see them. If you look at the pictures we took, you can almost see like a green tinge to the clouds. So they were there, but there was a layer of clouds between us and the Northern Lights. So with the naked eye, you definitely couldn't see anything. And then our next trip out was a Golden Circle tour. So this was on like a big motor coach, probably 50, 55 people. And we went to some of the common stops in the Golden Circle. I don't want to butcher the name, but there's a tomato greenhouse. I tried tomato soup for the first time, ended up loving it and have a new addiction. We saw some ponies out in the weather. Oh my gosh, they don't like to be called ponies. They're Icelandic horses. They're a specific breed of horses. We even saw some people riding horseback in the weather. I guess they do riding tours, and I can't imagine how uncomfortable they were. It was just blowing snow and wind, and it was crazy. We stopped at a waterfall. The tour guide told me, like, hold on to your daughter. Do not let her go. That's how strong the gusts of wind were. I think they said they were 60 miles an hour. So we walked up to a waterfall. Could barely see anything because we were squinting and the wind was blowing so hard, and kind of like held my camera up and took pictures, and didn't really get to stay there and enjoy the waterfall much, but it was like partially frozen and beautiful from what I did see. We went to a geyser that's supposed to shoot like 20, 30 meters into the air, but the wind was so strong that it like came out of the ground and just went sideways and was not like a huge eruption like we were expecting. And that was our last full day. We got back to the hotel, got ready to go to the Northern Lights tour, and found out that it had been canceled. If the cloud cover is really bad, they'll just call it off and not even go out and try and look. So that was our last night and our last chance to see the Northern Lights, which we did not get to see at all on the trip, which was a bummer. But we were a little bit exhausted from going out from like 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. every morning. And then the next day, our flight wasn't until the afternoon, so we just kind of checked out of our room, brought all of our stuff down, had lunch in the common room area, got our transfer back to the airport, and flew home. So from my personal experience, I think it was absolutely worth it for the price that we got to go to Iceland for 4 nights for under $1,000 a person, well under $1,000 a person. I would say with everything added in, the miles that we used to get to New York, the food that we bought while we were there, even souvenirs, I would still say we probably spent around, with the package being at like $499 per person, we probably ended up around $700 per person. I think it was definitely worth it. But like I said, I would love to go back in the summer. I think it would be a completely different trip, and I think it would be really nice to rent a car and drive around the country instead of staying in Reykjavik the whole time and just doing day trips out. I think I could see a lot more stuff. We could see the scenic, beautiful parts of the country that we missed. But this was like a great introductory trip to start seeing what Iceland is all about, and we would definitely love to go back. Despite not being able to see the Northern Lights in the summer, I think I would still want to come in the summer and see things when the weather's better. And I don't know if you saw it on the news, but the Northern Lights were visible in North Carolina 2 days after we got back from the trip. Had I known that, I would have driven out to the Blue Ridge Parkway to see them there. But still, yes, totally worth it to go.